My name is Ryan, I'm 39 years old, and for 10 years I thought I had found my world. Daniela and I were doing as well as I thought we could. We'd been together for 10 years, married for 4. We weren't flashy, we were just solid. She was 35, worked in HR, and knew how to rock. Me? I worked in logistics, came home at 6 and kissed her on the cheek before dinner every night. Our life was rhythmic. Friday nights we'd get takeaway and watch crime dramas. On Sundays, we'd sleep off and playfully argue about pancakes and waffles. We talked about starting a family soon. At least that's what I thought. Then she started to pull away. It wasn't noticeable at first. She no longer reached for my hand in the car. Her kisses went from slow burns to barely noticeable slaps. She was distracted during dinners, her eyes fixed on her phone when she usually asked about my day. And her laughter, her real, deep laugh, became rarer and rarer. When I'd ask if something was wrong, she'd wave it off. She'd say everything was fine. Then one night she broke down. Told me there were rumors at work. That people were saying she was getting too close to a coworker. She insisted it wasn't true, but said the rumors had gotten to her. I remember stroking her back while she cried. I didn't insist on it. I wanted to believe her. I chose to believe her. But the seed had been planted. I couldn't get rid of it. And when doubt takes root, it grows. That week, I noticed a new credit card bill I didn't recognize. A boutique hotel downtown, nothing flashy, just unremarkable. I didn't bring it up. Instead, I went online and looked up the date. She said she was late for work. 2 days later, I discovered a hidden bank account. It had been opened in her name 3 months ago. Right around the time she started to, distant. My heart sank. I still didn't blame her. I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband, the jealous fool. But I felt like a ghost in my own home. It kept me on guard. And then it happened. Her friend Mary came over one evening. The two of them were laughing and drinking wine in the kitchen. I stayed in the living room, half watching a documentary. At one point Daniela stepped out into the hallway to text someone. I casually looked up as I went to get my juice and saw the name pop up on her phone screen, Josh. I didn't bother peeking. It was just there. A moment. An accident. But I saw the message, thinking about him again. Feeling so guilty. My inner mood fell to my knees and my mind tried to rationalize everything. But his name came up again and again. That night. When she fell asleep, I did something I'd never done before. I read her texts with Josh. And what I discovered made my blood run cold. She wasn't just thinking about him. She was telling her friend that she loved him. She was saying that he made her feel alive in a way I'd never felt before. There were dates. Encounters. A man she worked with. He didn't work there anymore, but it didn't matter anymore. When I told her about all of this, she denied it all with such calmness that it shocked me. Said it was all just a lie she told her friend to make herself seem more experienced. That nothing like that had ever happened. So you're pretending to cheat on me? I asked, straining my voice. She nodded. Yes. None of it was real. And that made it even worse. I used to trust Daniela like an attraction. But now her every word seemed like a mystery. It wasn't just a betrayal. It was a spit in the face. A slow, inexorable disintegration of everything I thought I knew. And deep down, I knew it was only the beginning. I wish I could tell you I handled it well. That I calmly went to bed, slept like a baby, and woke up with a sense of clarity. But the truth? I barely slept. I lay next to her, listening to her breathe, and all I could think was which breaths were hiding something. The rise and fall of her chest, once a rhythm that comforted me, now felt like a metronome counting down to something I couldn't name. The next morning, she made French toast. It used to be our comfort food, especially on cold mornings. She poured the syrup slowly, deliberately, humming that old Otis Redding tune she always did. But it felt like watching a memory reenacted by someone else. Like she was playing a role she no longer believed in. "You okay?" she asked casually over coffee. I nodded. "Just tired." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Long week, huh?" "Yeah. A long week of discovering that my wife was either faking a betrayal or quietly living one, and I had no idea which. Then came the kicker. That afternoon, I went into the garage to clear my head. Started going through old boxes, the kind filled with forgotten things, photos, cards, stray souvenirs. I found a shoebox full of snapshots. Vacations. Birthdays. Sunday mornings. Moments we'd once called ours. And tucked between two of them, a Polaroid I didn't remember taking. Daniela. On a boat. A drink in one hand. A man's arm wrapped around her waist. His face was turned just out of frame, but hers was crystal clear. She was looking up at him, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. That kind of smile, the kind that used to be for me, was now caught in a photo I had no memory of. I froze. Sat down on the cold garage floor and stared at it. And then, without meaning to, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. That one little photo said everything she hadn't. No explanations. No excuses. Just a moment that didn't include me. I used to dismiss Polaroids. Said they made everything look grainy and unreal. And now, one of them was showing me the clearest truth I'd seen in months. That night, I tried again. Was there ever someone else? I asked as we lay in bed, our backs to each other. No, she replied instantly. Why would you ask that? I didn't answer. I just stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks like they might spell out what she wouldn't say. She didn't ask why I was quiet. Didn't reach for my hand. And that more than anything told me what I needed to know. I didn't lose her all at once. It was like watching the tide go out, inch by inch. And every morning, I woke up with less sand beneath my feet. I became a man split in two. One version of me still went to work, greeted coworkers, answered emails, and chuckled at breakroom coffee jokes. The other one waited. Watched. Noticed details he used to overlook. It started small. A cologne scent on Daniela's scarf that wasn't mine. A new blouse, silk, tight-fitting, too elegant for a typical office day. I told myself I was overthinking, but it was a losing argument. You can't reason your way out of suspicion. Once betrayal takes hold, it settles behind your ribs and whispers. She started texting more. Smiling at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. She began wearing perfume to bed, not for me. I knew that instinctively. And her eyes, when they met mine, they seemed to be searching for someone she used to know, not the person in front of her. So I started digging. At first, I called it curiosity. A need for clarity. But it wasn't. It was preparation. Quiet war. I pulled our phone records and started marking unfamiliar numbers. One showed up often, late at night, during her so-called HR debriefs. I called it disconnected. One evening, I drove past her office. Her car was still there. The building lights were on. I parked across the street and waited. 45 minutes later, she came out alone. Her walk was loose, a little off. Maybe tipsy, maybe acting. She paused on the sidewalk, checked her phone, smiled, then drove off. It was the smile that did it. The kind you give someone who makes your pulse skip. Not someone you split bills and leftovers with. The next day, I followed her. I told my boss I had a doctor's appointment. Instead, I waited until she left the house and trailed her downtown. She parked at a boutique-style coffee shop and met someone. A man. Mid-40s, lean, confident. Charcoal blazer. Sunglasses indoors. The kind of man who doesn't need to ask if he's being noticed. She touched his hand across the table. That night, she came home like it was any other day. Kissed my cheek. Asked how work was. I lied and said fine. I wanted to shout, to confront. But I didn't. I just looked at her like a man learning to read silence. And in that silence, I realized something terrifying. She thought I didn't know. That's how far gone we were. I started keeping a journal, not for emotion, but for evidence. Every shift in behavior. Every glance. Every vague excuse or late-night call. The journal turned into a log. The log into a spreadsheet. Dates. Times. Places. I was building a case against the woman I married. The irony hit one night at 2 a.m. I was sitting in the kitchen, eating cold lasagna, staring at a wall of notes and scribbles like some budget detective in a noir film. I muttered under my breath. Ryan Whitmore, logistics manager by day, trust analyst by night. I laughed, one of those hollow, exhausted laughs that blurs into something else. And then I cried. Not just for what was happening, but because I still missed her. Even now. Even like this. One morning, she left her laptop open. The temptation sat there like a live wire. I clicked. Her browser history had been wiped clean except for one tab she'd forgotten to close. An email draft. No subject. But the message read, I hate lying to him. But I can't stop seeing you. When I'm with you, I remember who I used to be before I became his wife. I stared at that line for what felt like forever. I didn't even hear her walk in. She didn't shout. Didn't cry. Just froze in the doorway like she'd caught me stealing something sacred. You read my email? I did. Do you feel better now? No, I said. Just confirmed. We stood in silence. The kind that holds its breath. Then she whispered something I'll never forget. I didn't mean for it to happen. That's when I understood. She wasn't sorry she'd done it. She was sorry I found out. I nodded. Got up. Walked past her without another word. That was the first night I slept on the couch. But it wouldn't be the last. The next morning started with a coffee spill and an email from my boss titled urgent, which turned out to be about printer toner. I was elbow deep in replacing the cartridge when my phone buzzed 3 times in a row. All from Daniela. Call me, the first message read. Emergency, said the second. Mom's coming to stay, said the third. I stared at my phone like it had just confessed to a crime. You see, her mother, Elaine, wasn't just a mother-in-law. She was a Category 5 emotional hurricane wrapped in designer scarves, with a gift for passive aggression so precise it could slice deli meat. She once told me, while sipping her 3rd glass of Zinfandel, that I had such a forgettable face she sometimes confused me with the accountant at her church. By noon, Elaine had arrived. Hair lacquered into submission, lips a bright armor red, and towing a leopard print suitcase that clashed with every surface in our house. She gave Daniela a single kiss, sniffed in my direction like I was expired milk, and promptly claimed the guest room and the kitchen. Oh, you still cook pasta in aluminum? Interesting. Ryan, that might explain your stomach issues. I didn't have stomach issues until she said that. Her arrival spun our already shaky marriage into a surreal sitcom. Every time Daniela and I tried to talk seriously, Elaine would interrupt. Once, during a particularly tense moment, she waltzed in holding a Tupperware of lemon bars and said, if you're going to argue, at least do it with dessert. At first, the absurdity was maddening. Then, somehow, it wasn't. One night, after Elaine fell asleep to a true crime podcast blaring from her bedroom, Daniela and I found ourselves sharing a bottle of wine on the porch. Your mom still thinks I work in finance, I said dryly. Daniela snorted. She still thinks I'm a virgin. We laughed, really laughed. For the first time in a long time, it felt easy. I watched her tilt her head back, that old laugh bubbling out of her, unguarded, real. The kind of laugh that used to be mine. But the moment didn't last. The wine ran out. The silence returned. And in that quiet, I asked, do you miss him? She froze. Her glass hovered at her lips. She didn't answer. I just want to know what I'm up against, I said softly. Memories, she whispered. Then she stood and went inside. I stayed on the porch, alone with the crickets and 1,000 unanswered questions. And the next morning, Elaine announced she was extending her stay indefinitely, to help us reconnect. I very nearly booked myself a hotel. But I didn't. Because, oddly, something had shifted. A crack of light in weeks of shadow. Laughter. Tension broken, if only for a night. That evening, I moved from the couch back to our bed. We didn't touch. But we didn't turn away, either. Progress, I thought. Then Elaine called down the hallway. Just remember, good relationships are like good soup. You have to stir them sometimes. I laughed. Daniela did too. And for one strange, stupid, fleeting night, we almost felt married again. It all started with voicemail. I was at work, checking email, halfway through my second coffee, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I usually skip these kinds of calls, but there was something about this one that was heavy. Hey, Ryan. You don't know me, but you probably should. My name's Josh. I used to work with Daniela. I'm calling because I think you deserve to know what's going on. That was it. No explanation at all. Just that 1-minute message that made my stomach turn over. I called him back. Josh didn't hold back. She and I were connected, he said. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. She said things about you that made me uncomfortable. Said you were boring. Controlled. Unimaginative. I didn't believe her at first, but I guess I didn't care. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel with such force that my knuckles turned white. How long? I asked. 7 months, he said. We ended the relationship 2 weeks ago. I ended it. Why? He hesitated. Because I met someone. Someone who didn't lie. He sent me screenshots. Photos. Messages. Daniela, in the silk dress I bought her for Valentine's Day, posing on the sheets at the hotel. Her words to him, when I'm with you, I feel more like myself than I ever did at home. It hit me like a freight train. Not just the betrayal, but the intimacy of it. She hadn't just slept with someone. She had become someone else to him. Someone I never got to meet. That night, I came face to face with her. When I walked in, the house was quiet. Elaine, thank God, was at her bridge club. Daniela was sitting on the couch with wine in her hand watching one of those crime shows we once enjoyed together. The irony was almost poetic. I dropped my phone on the table. Images flashed on the screen. She stared. Didn't say anything. Then slowly reached for the remote and turned off the TV. I assume Josh called, she said quietly. I guess you're right. She nodded, not taking her eyes off the phone. I'm sorry, she whispered. I laughed. A short, violent bark that surprised even me. Sorry? You had a second life, Daniela. You carried my gifts into someone else's bed. She stood up. Tried to touch my arm. I flinched. I didn't know how to stop, she said. It made me feel seen. Desired. You used to look at me like that a lot. But then you got so busy, so practical. I stepped back. So it's my fault? No, she said. It's mine. All of it. But I needed this. I needed to remember who I was before I was just your wife. That word just cut deeper than treason. I thought we were going to make things right, I said. After last night, after we laughed again. I thought so too, she said. But Josh was real. And you were becoming a memory. Silence. Then Elaine's voice came from the hallway, if you're going to yell, at least wait until I get the popcorn. I stared at Daniela. I'm done, I said. I'm done being your backup. And your rabbit, I'm a man after all. I made my way to the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and started packing. Where are you going? She asked. Anywhere but here. And for the first time in months, I sounded serious. I didn't start slamming the door. Because sometimes the quietest exits leave the loudest echoes. I stopped at a roadside motel 15 miles from home. The place smelled faintly of mold and coffee from a machine. The desk clerk didn't ask any questions. Just handed me the key and wished me a good night's rest. The first night I hardly slept at all. Not because the bed was hard or the air conditioner moaned like it was on its last breath, but because the silence was too complete. I couldn't hear Daniela brushing her teeth. No Elaine ringing the doorbell asking if I'd seen her retainer. No sign of life together. Just I lay there watching the ceiling fan. Watching it spin. Wondering if I broke it. Maybe I pushed it so far away that it just fell into someone else's arms because I wasn't there to catch it. Guilt has a way of rewriting the past. Suddenly, every late night at work began to feel like a domino toppling over into disaster. The next morning, I unplugged my phone. I needed air. Space. The sky. I drove to the pier where our third date took place. She wore a dress the color of seafoam and told me she didn't like the way her nose wrinkled when she laughed. I replied that it was the best part of her face. She kissed me first that day. I sat on a bench overlooking the water and let the wind sting my skin. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But I felt dry, like I'd already cried all my emptiness out. That night, a message came. From Mary. She'd been crying all day. Elaine left early. Said she didn't sign up for a soap opera. I didn't answer. I told myself I didn't care. But that was a lie. I cared so much that it hurt to breathe. On the third day, I met my old college friend Todd at a bar near campus. He was stunned to see me. "Dude, you look like hell. What's going on?" So I told him. No filters. I let everything spill out, the dirty, the raw, the real thing. He didn't interrupt. Just listened. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Ryan, you didn't lose your wife. You lost the illusion of her existence." It sounded like a shot of cold water. You're mourning someone who didn't really exist. Not the way you thought it would be. And yeah, that sucks, but it's better than living a lie. He bought me a beer. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. That night, I started writing. Not to finish it. Not for revenge. Just for myself. I wrote about the first time she said, "I love you." About how her laughter made me feel like the luckiest guy in the world. About the night she didn't get home until 2 in the morning and said she just lost track of time. I wrote it all down. Because pain demands to be named. On the fourth night, I turned my phone back on. 2 voicemails from Daniela. One sounded angry. The other, broken. I didn't listen to either one. But I didn't delete them either. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. But I also wasn't ready to erase it. And in that daze, something finally clicked. The only way out of this was to get through it. It wasn't the mornings that hurt the most, it was the in-betweens. That half second after waking when my brain still thought I was home. That she was next to me. That her hair would be a mess, her breath awful, and she'd mumble something about needing coffee more than love. Then reality would crash in cold and sharp, like stepping barefoot on broken glass. I went back to work after a week. Wore a shirt I hadn't touched in months. Daniela used to joke it made me look like a youth pastor. No one commented. Just tight-lipped smiles and awkward silences. In the break room, conversations dropped when I entered. I caught the glances. Noticed how Mary avoided my eyes. Some version of the story had leaked, and it didn't matter how accurate it was. Scandal turns personal pain into public curiosity. Everyone loves a tragedy when it isn't theirs. That night, I sat in my car in the parking lot, engine running. The radio played soft jazz. Rain tapped against the windshield, slow and steady. I watched it beat and slide, hypnotic. For a moment, I considered not going back to the motel. Just driving until the tank ran dry or I did. But I went back. Because broken men still need somewhere to collapse. The next morning, there was a letter taped to my motel door. Not from Daniela. From Elaine. The note was short. Handwritten in tight, elegant cursive. "You're a better man than most. She's her father's daughter, God help us both. If you ever want real lemon bars again, you know where I live. E." I didn't laugh. But I smiled. That counted for something. By the weekend, Mary texted again. "She's not eating. Keeps talking about the sound your keys made when you left. Keeps replaying that last click of the door. I typed out a dozen replies. Deleted every one. Finally, I sent. "I know that sound too." That night, I dreamed of her again. Not the version from the end, but from the beginning. That trip to the cabin in Blue Hollow. Her falling asleep on my shoulder during the storm. Me whispering that I could sit there forever, just listening to her breathe. I woke in the middle of the night. Reached for my notebook. And wrote. "How do you mourn someone who isn't dead? How do you bury a love that still has a pulse? That's when I realized I hadn't just lost Daniela. I had lost the version of myself that believed in unconditional love. In forever. The grief was real because the love had been real. Even if she hadn't protected it. Now, I had to figure out how to carry that weight without letting it crush me. Because no one tells you this. Betrayal echoes. It doesn't shout, it lingers. It shows up in pauses, in scenes from movies, in songs you used to hum together. And every echo asks the same question. Were you ever enough? 2 weeks. That's how long it's been since I left. 2 weeks of silence. Ghost dreams and half-finished diary entries. I heard her voice where it couldn't be. Then there was a knock. It was late. I had just brushed my teeth and finished a rerun of a show I didn't care about. The knock wasn't loud, just steady. I opened the door. Daniela. She stood there in jeans and a sweatshirt, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked like the girl I'd first met. The one who once asked me what kind of dog I would be if I were a dog, and then laughed so hard she almost spilled her drink when I said golden retriever. Safe. Predictable. Devoted. She held out a grocery bag. Inside was a lemon, 2 spoons, and a pint of ice cream. You always said you liked citrus better than chocolate, she said quietly. I didn't move. I didn't invite her in. But I didn't close the door either. I'm not here to beg, she said. I had to see you. One last time, if that. I let her in. We sat on opposite sides of the motel bed. The ice cream between us slowly melted. For a few minutes we didn't say anything. Then she spoke. I hate what I did. Not just because it hurt you, but because I became someone I didn't even recognize. I looked at her, waiting. I was lonely, she said. But not one that can be solved in company. It was deeper than that. It was like I'd forgotten how to be myself if someone else didn't define me. And Josh? She nodded. Slowly. He was a mirror. He reflected the version of me I wanted to believe existed. And I wasn't a mirror enough? No, she whispered. You were a beacon. Too steady. Too real. And I didn't feel like I deserved to come home to you. It sounded different. Not as betrayal. Like the truth, cold and pure. You could have told me. I didn't know how. Silence again. The ice cream froze in the lid. She reached into her sweatshirt pocket. I wrote you a letter, she said. You don't have to read it now. Or ever. I just needed somewhere to keep the truth. I took it. Didn't open it. Then I said something I hadn't planned to. You broke me, Daniela. Not just because you were unfaithful. But because I believed you wouldn't be. Her voice cracked. I know. I think about it every night. You loved him? I loved the way he made me feel. It's not the same thing. And me? She hesitated. Her eyes glittered. I never stopped. That's the worst part. I glanced at the clock. Midnight. I won't be able to forgive you tonight. I wouldn't believe you if you did. We sat in silence. Then I stood up. You should go. She got up, too. Stopped. Reached out and gently squeezed my palm. Even if we don't find our way back, she said, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve the man I lost. I didn't open the letter. Not that night. Not the next morning. I placed it in the nightstand drawer of the motel, right beside the Bible no one touched and the takeout menus everyone did. It sat there like a grenade with the pin already pulled. I woke up to a voicemail from my boss. Corporate was restructuring. Logistics was overstaffed. I wasn't laid off. Not yet. But his exact words were, be prepared. So there I was, betrayed, exiled, and potentially unemployed. I looked in the mirror. My beard had gone feral, creeping down my jaw like moss on a forgotten statue. My eyes were hollow. My reflection looked like someone trying out for a ghost story. I called Todd. Told him I might not be coming back to work for long. You should come out, he said. Just for a night. Doesn't have to be heavy. I declined. I didn't want to be around people. People asked questions. People smiled too much. That evening, I sat in the motel parking lot and watched the couple in the next room argue. Their window was open. Every word carried. She accused him of always forgetting her birthday. He yelled that she never cared about his job. It was theatrical in its ordinariness. And I thought this was us too, once. Just louder now. The next morning, I opened the drawer. I took out her letter. I didn't read it straight through. I let my eyes trace her handwriting, the loops of her G, the way she still curled her R like she used to when doodling on napkins during road trips. That familiarity hurt more than anything she wrote. Halfway through, one line stuck. I know I lost the right to ask for anything. But if I could, I'd ask for your grace. Not your forgiveness, just your grace. So I can live with myself knowing the best part of my life didn't end hating me. I folded the letter. Tucked it into my wallet. Not because I forgave her. But because some truths deserve to be carried. Later that day, a text from Mary came through. She's moved out. Said she can't live there without you. Asked if I thought you'd ever come home. I didn't reply. But that night, I drove by the house. Parked across the street. Lights off. Blinds drawn. It looked like a model home. I didn't open the letter. Not that night. Not the next morning. I placed it in the nightstand drawer of the motel, right beside the Bible no one touched and the takeout menus everyone did. It sat there like a grenade with the pin already pulled. I woke up to a voicemail from my boss. Corporate was restructuring. Logistics was overstaffed. I wasn't laid off. Not yet. But his exact words were, "Be prepared." So there I was, betrayed, exiled, and potentially unemployed. I looked in the mirror. My beard had gone feral, creeping down my jaw like moss on a forgotten statue. My eyes were hollow. My reflection looked like someone trying out for a ghost story. I called Todd. Told him I might not be coming back to work for long. "You should come out," he said. "Just for a night. Doesn't have to be heavy." I declined. I didn't want to be around people. People asked questions. People smiled too much. That evening, I sat in the motel parking lot and watched the couple in the next room argue. Their window was open. Every word carried. She accused him of always forgetting her birthday. He yelled that she never cared about his job. It was theatrical in its ordinariness. And I thought this was us too, once. Just louder now. The next morning, I opened the drawer. I took out her letter. I didn't read it straight through. I let my eyes trace her handwriting, the loops of her G, the way she still curled her R like she used to when doodling me in a real estate brochure. Lived in by no one. Loved by no one. I stayed for an hour. Then I left. Somewhere between the driveway and the freeway, I screamed. Not words. Just sound. Raw and full and ragged. The kind that tears up your throat and leaves your chest bruised. Later that night, I checked into a different motel. One town over. A little further from memory. Because even heartbreak needs a change of scenery. And because the bed where you first feel empty will never feel full again. Hope didn't arrive with fireworks. It came in the form of laundry. At the new motel, there was a coin-operated washer tucked in a dim little room next to the ice machine. I was dumping a week's worth of socks and regrets into a plastic tub when I heard a soft voice behind me. Tide Pods. Much easier. I looked up. A woman, early 40s, maybe. Worn jeans. Hoodie that read Detroit Soul. She held up a small box and smiled like she hadn't just stepped into the ruins of my solitude. Her name was Valerie. Divorced. Traveling nurse. 2 kids she saw twice a month. She talked fast and laughed louder. And strangely, I didn't mind. We folded our laundry in silence after some small talk about Michigan winters and vending machine coffee. As she picked up her last towel, she looked at me and said, "You've got the eyes of someone trying really hard not to drown." I opened my mouth to deny it. But instead, I just nodded. She handed me a Tide Pod. For next time. It wasn't much. But it was human. The next day, I walked downtown. Saw an old man teaching his granddaughter to feed pigeons. She giggled every time they fluttered too close. And I smiled. Actually smiled. That night, I wrote again. Not about Daniela. Not directly. I wrote about lighthouses. How they don't chase lost ships. They just stay lit. Waiting. Hoping. I didn't know if I wanted to go back. But for the first time in months, I knew I wanted something again. A future that didn't ache to picture. Then came the call. It was Todd. Your old boss called, he said. He's looking for someone to manage logistics on a new project. Out of state. Your name came up. I paused. A new place. A clean slate. He said the job's yours if you want it. He'll wait a week. I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the motel ceiling, tracing the little cracks like constellations. I'll think about it, I said. And I meant it. Hope isn't always a sunrise. Sometimes it's a quiet room. A warm towel. The soft thunk of a laundry pod. A phone call you didn't expect. And the promise of maybe. Maybe tomorrow, I'll pack. Maybe next week, I'll drive. Maybe, just maybe, I'll come back to life.